We've got here a Fender Deluxe Reverb amp, no logo, Fender Electric Instrument Company. So 64, possibly 63. Let's find out what's going on. Here you can see that the grill cloth has got some little bitty tears in it. That's very common, and this grill cloth gets really fragile, especially at the edges after being stretched for so many years. So when people say, can you transfer the old grill cloth to a new baffle? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It's really difficult, and I prefer to send people to upholstery shops for that kind of thing because they have stretching tools and extra sets of hands and a lot more experience at doing the fabric stuff than I do. Anyway, let's flip this around and see what we see. All right, an old Oxford, different speaker cable. Not very attractive, but functionally fine, probably. All the tubes. This was shipped to me, so here are the tubes in a box. We'll put those in a little bit. And the power cable is 3-conductor, pretty damn short. We can do something about that while we're at it, because this thing's really annoyingly short. What is that, about 4 feet? And this is upside down. Let's take this out of our way. Well, it's got tubes in it, so maybe this was sent as a spare set or upgrades. We've got some missing screws holding the speaker down here where the reverb tank is. It feels like they're missing up top too. So I know how to replace those. That speaker, I can see some cobwebs. I think that speaker may be in bad shape. Stay tuned on that. Reverb cable is disconnected. It's modern plastic stuff. I'll test that in the tank later. But I'm concerned about this speaker. So let me get the bottom cover off and pull the chassis. We'll take a look at this speaker. All right, yeah, it's missing the nuts and tooth washers at top and bottom, just held on by these 4. It's possible this was just someone being lazy because it's hard to change those bottom ones with the reverb tank bag in place and the top ones if the chassis was in place. But let me take this out and let's take a look at it. I don't know if you've ever ordered a speaker from Weber. When you order a Weber speaker, you can choose no doping or light or medium or heavy doping. In this case, looks like they chose drywall. This is obviously not a Weber speaker. This is not something Weber did. I'm just making a joke. This is like drywall mud. This is really stiff, and this speaker is not going to sound very good at all. I mean, my God. It really doesn't want to move in the spider at all. Just speaking of spiders, it's full of cobwebs. I mean, I'm literally full of cobwebs. I don't know how much that's coming across on the camera. But I'm thinking just about anything's going to sound better than this. It's a 12K5 from 1964. And I will ask the owner if he'd like me to have this reconed and totally repaired, or whether he'd like to just keep this in a box somewhere for collector's sake and put in a modern speaker, which typically would sound better than an old 12K, but you know, that's very subjective. Anyway, I'm gonna put this to the side until I speak to the owner. As far as all this goes, 63 date code on the power, 64, 64, 64 on reverb, output, and choke. Let's see what's under the doghouse. All right, it's been recapped in 2019 with some Sprague atoms. They're not glued down, but should be okay. I'll make sure those resistors measure okay. I may change out those resistors, but assuming that these caps are good, I don't see any problem there. Let's take a look at the inside. Well, I don't have time to write up the entire litany, but some not great work is done. The ground is just barely hanging on there on the power cable. It's got some 1-watt heater balance resistors poorly attached. A lot of really sloppy, grainy solder connections. Here's the chassis ground, and they tack soldered to the chassis ground with this new connection. That's not reliable. They have the hot coming off the fuse, and they've switched the neutral. That's a new one. I don't see that very often. I'll clean all that up. The rest of the amp's mostly original. Cathode bypass caps changed out, of course. Some more Spragues. And what looks initially to be pretty good, except that they've J-hooked the old lead. They've just connected the leads of these new caps to the old lead here, and they left some old leads in the holes. Hard to see here, but it's there. So I'd like to redo this properly, and at which point it'll have new electrolytics in the bias, new electrolytics here. I'll leave those Sprague atoms in the filtering unless there's an issue, but I'd give this work a C+ or a B-. Like here, where this ground wire pulled out of this old solder joint, they didn't heat up the right iron to redo that joint properly. They just added some more solder on top of the old solder, and that's really not very reliable. I could pull that out with my fingernail, most likely. Things like that, things like that, things like that. Just a lot of things that are close but no cigar. And I think a Deluxe Reverb from 1964 deserves a bit more careful work. There's also a lot of discoloration on the brass panel here. Maybe a liquid spill at some point. I'd like to take this apart and clean all this up while I'm at it. Make this thing really rock solid. So I'll report to the owner and see what he says, and hopefully this will get the green light. Till next time, thanks for watching.